Okay, so we are about to start the first Tikkun. Now, just let me recap a little bit. What we are doing now is called the Tikkunei Zohar. The Tikkunei Zohar. The Tikkunei Zohar is a section of the Zohar. It's really an independent book, but it's a section of the Zohar literature. And it is really 70 teachings, 70 teachings, based on the first verse of the Bible, the first word, in fact, of the Bible, of the Torah. The first word is the word Bereshit, which is usually translated as in the beginning. But we will see that the Tikkunei Zohar explains this word, this first word, in 70 different ways by giving 70 different tseirufim. The word is tseirufim. Tseirufim means permutations. The letters in Hebrew can be permutated. I don't know if you could say it like that, but they can be permutated in different ways. And depending on what the permutations are, it can give you a whole different meaning. I've explained this before in several previous classes. The classical example that's used is the word in the section which tells the story of Noah and his ark. So Noah is told by God to make himself a window in the ark, a window or a source of light. The word used there is Zohar. So the Baal Shem Tov explains on this that the word Zohar can come in different permutations, one of which is Tzara. It's the same letters. In Hebrew, the letters would be Tzadik Reish Hey. Same as Zohar, Tzadik Hey Reish, but just in a different permutation. Now, why is this significant? It's significant because the idea is that different permutations give different ideas, and since they're all the same letters, we have to understand how the permutations affect each other and like the sort of interaction between the permutations. So I'm not going to go into the one from the story about Noah now, but we are going to discuss the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, and the first explanation that the Zohar gives is that the word Bereshit can be really divided into two words, or let's put it this way, one letter and then words. I'll just write it down in the chat so you can see. 1 second. Beit Reshit. Okay, there we go. 1 second. Send to everybody. Here we go. Okay. Beit Reshit. So the word Bereshit, if I would just write it out in normal, it would go like this. Yeah, but what? Oh, change it to English. Sorry. Bereshit. Okay, so now what we're doing is as follows. If I would do it in English, it would be like this. Beit Reshit. Right? That's how it would look. Okay, so what is the importance over here? So we understand what we're doing over here by understanding what the whole concept of the Tikkunei Zohar is. What does the word Tikkunei mean? It means the Tikkun of. What is Tikkun? So there's two explanations of the word Tikkun. One explanation of the word Tikkun is that it's to fix something, to rectify. The other explanation is that it's to dress something or to clothe one thing in another. Like, for example, the Torah uses the expression Bigdei Isha, the clothes of a woman. And it translates it in the Aramaic translation as Tikkunei Itasa, right? The clothing or the garments of the woman. So, what the Tikkunei Zohar wants to do is to bring a very, very lofty concept into clothing, In other words, into a vessel that we can understand, into something that to a certain extent hides the body within it, like clothing does, but on the other hand reveals that it's there. So to speak, if you would be a big Casper the Friendly Ghost fan, how do you relate to Casper? You got to throw a sheet over him, or you won't. You throw a sheet over the ghost, or you won't be able to see it, right? So that's basically what we are doing over here. The Tikkunei Zohar, so to speak, throws a sheet over the very lofty and spiritual idea so that you can see the outlines of it at least. Even though you can't see everything, but at least you can see the outlines. So what we're doing now in the word Bereshit is the first permutation of the word is Beit Reshit, as I said before over here, as I said in the, have a look in the chat. So the word Beit Reshit, what does that really mean? Beit is one of the letters, the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and Reshit means beginning. Now, this is what the Tikkunei Zohar says. This is what the Tikkunei Zohar says. I'm going to just translate it directly from the Aramaic. It says like this: the Tikkun Rishon, the first Tikkun is as follows, right? The Bereshit, Beit Reshit. And then it goes on to say as follows. It quotes a verse. Ze hashar laHashem, tzadikim yavo'u vo. This is the gateway. This is from Psalms. It would be Psalms 118, verse 20. Psalms 118, verse 20. It says, this is the gateway to God. The righteous pass through it. So in other words, what we've said over here, this Beit Reshit, this breakdown of the word Bereshit in the beginning, we've broken it down into two words, Bet, the letter Bet, the second letter of the alphabet, and Reshit, beginning. Says the Zohar, says the Tikkunei Zohar, this is the gateway to God, through which the righteous, through which holy people pass. This is the gateway through which only tzaddikim, only holy and saintly people pass, whereas other people who are not holy and righteous cannot pass through this gate. What is this gate? We'll soon see. It's going to explain to us what the gate is. So, the word bet in Hebrew, if you spell it out fully, the word bet, that would be in English like this, but in Hebrew, when it's spelled out, how do you spell bet? You spell it like this. It's spelled as the word bayit. Bayit means a house or a home. Right? So the beginning home, in other words, the first place that you find yourself at home, the reshit, the beginning of finding yourself at home, is this gateway. Now, what does it mean to be at home? Well, we are going to explain this. It says like this. Again, only the saintly can pass through this gate. We still haven't described what the gate is. There are in various explanations of the Tikkunei Zohar, there are lots of technical explanations of which Sfirat corresponds to, whether it corresponds to Bina or it corresponds to Malchut. I'm not going to go there because the technicalities to a certain extent are only useful once you understand the main concept. And that main concept is as follows. He's going to explain it now. He says like this: on this gateway are drawn or engraved and painted and again engraved. On this gateway are engraved and carved out various forms, various likenesses of those above and those below. I'm just translating right now from the original, from the Tikkunei Zohar. I'll explain all of this soon. And one of the engravings, one of the images over there, so to speak, is the image of the likeness of a human being. It's the likeness of a human being. And then there's 4 other likenesses. There's the likeness of a lion on the right side. There's a likeness of an ox on the left side. There's a likeness of an eagle in the middle. And then there's a likeness of man as well at the back, so to speak. Now, what are we talking about? If anyone is familiar with these things, we are talking about the vision of Ezekiel Yechezkel, Ezekiel the prophet. Right in the beginning of Ezekiel, he tells about an experience which he had, which was the experience of the Merkava. The Merkava. Merkava is the chariot, right? Or in Hebrew, Merkava. Right now, what is exactly the chariot? Well, interestingly enough, the word Merkava in Hebrew comes from the word to compose, laharkiv, to put together. What are we putting together now? We're putting together letters in order to get us to a deeper truth. But the essential concept of the Merkava, besides the permutation of letters which is called harkava, when you bring letters together, the concept here is that what is a chariot? What is a Merkava? Chariot, literally in English, right? How do we? What is a chariot? So a chariot is simply a vehicle, right? And the vehicle is pulled by various animals. In those days, they didn't have combustion engines, so their chariots and vehicles or whatever were pulled by horses or by oxen or by whatever it was, like by various kinds of animals that were put, horses, whatever, that kind of thing, right? Okay. But what is the chariot itself? The chariot is simply an inanimate object. It has to be pulled along. It has to be, in order to get from point A to point B, it has to be moved along by something. Something has to pull it. It doesn't go by itself. The idea is here that one has to put something, some force, some mechanism, which moves the chariot from point A to point B. But if the chariot is being pulled from point A to point B, but the animals do not have any, the animals that are pulling the chariot do not have any direction, that they're not steered, then you're going to land up in the ditch or worse. So, this chariot, therefore, is an analogy. The idea of a chariot is an analogy to get us to understand that what we're talking about here is the harnessing of all the forces which are natural, which are found in nature, and are naturally found within a human being as well. What are those natural forces? These are depicted by 4 animals on the side of the chariot. And I say 4 animals, I'll explain why. One of them is a human being, but I'll explain why I said animals in a second. So one of them, the one on the right, is a lion. The one on the left is an ox. The one in the front is an eagle, and the one at the back is the face of a human being, the likeness of the likeness of a human being. Now, all of these forces are found within the human being. The lion, the force of the lion, which is on the right side, depicts the concept of chesed and rachamim, of kindness and compassion. Now, you wouldn't think normally that a lion is a kind and compassionate creature. But the image of a lion as an attacking animal is only when it's really only when it's hungry. If you've ever seen a lion in, I'm from Africa, from South Africa originally, and so I did see a lot of lions in my time, out in the wild as well. And lions, when they're satisfied, when they're not hungry, are sitting around together with their troop and having a good time together. You can see, if you go and have a look at a video of lions when they're not hunting, they're just sitting around and having a good time together. They're playing and they're enjoying themselves and so on and so forth. Right, so the lion, therefore, represents the concept of compassion and kindness in the human being. Yes, it can be a predatory creature as well, a lion, but in this particular context that we're talking about, it's not. What is the angry creature is the ox, the goring ox. That's on the left side to depict this idea of something that's a goring ox. In the front of the chariot is an eagle. An eagle also represents, even more than the lion, represents the idea of compassion, because an eagle carries its young on its wings. It would rather take the arrow in itself. If a hunter is going to hunt the eagle, the arrow will go into the eagle and not into the eagle's young, because the eagle's young is protected. No other bird can attack an eagle from above. The eagle is the one that flies the highest. No other bird will fly above the eagle. So therefore, an eagle protects its young by keeping it on its back. So that's, again, the idea of compassion towards its young. And the final face on the Merkava is the face of a human being. Now, all of these are primal forces. They're primal forces within us. There's the force of kindness towards our family, like the lion. There's the force of the angry ox who loses his temper all the time. There's the force of the nesher, the eagle, which protects its own, even willing to give up its own life and cause itself pain rather than have its young. And then there's the face of the human being. All of these are primal forces within us. Now, the face of the human being that's at the back of the chariot is not the face of the human being that is above on the chariot, the one guiding the chariot. The chariot is simply primal forces that can pull the chariot to this way, to the right, to the left, forward, backwards, etc. These are primal forces within us, which are simply human forces. There's the animal soul, which has several facets. There's the animal soul, which shows kindness to its own. There's the animal soul, which shows cruelty towards others, the goring ox. There's the aspect of the animal soul, which shows compassion to its own. And there's the aspect of the animal soul, which is the human being, the face of the human being, who uses his human intellect, to seek out the best path for himself. All of these aspects have to be reined in and directed in order to move towards the goal that the human-like appearance sitting upon a throne or sitting upon the chair on the chariot wants it to go. So sitting on the chair in the middle of this chariot is a human-like figure. That is the representation of the godly soul, the divine soul within a person, as opposed to the animal soul, which is the size of the chariot itself. And this chariot has to be guided and moved along by the divine soul. So what is the Zohar explaining to us over here? The Zohar is telling us that this idea of the gateway that we go through is only for the righteous, for the holy, for the saintly to pass through. Why? Because only they are in control of these primal forces within themselves. Only with a tzaddik, with a righteous person, are those forces in the control of the godly soul. With everybody else, the godly soul is usually subdued by the animal soul, or at least conflicted, if not subdued, by the animal soul. There's a conflict, there's a battle going on. And this is in fact what the first Tikkun is coming to tell us. That the first gate, the first garment, the first rectification is for the godly soul to gain control of these primal animal forces within us. That is done not so much in a forceful way as in a way of attempting to get the animal soul, so to speak, to agree that what is best for it is not known to itself, but is known to the godly soul. Let me explain this by way of an expression. There's an expression that sages use that says as follows: En hachavush matir es atzmoi. Someone who is in captivity cannot free himself. A person in captivity cannot free himself from his captivity. Well, there are some people that break out of jail, yeah, true. But in general, someone who is captive doesn't free himself, but he can be freed by somebody else. So here, these primal forces gain their freedom when they follow the dictates, when they follow the guidance of the godly soul. This is why the sages refer to the patriarchs of the Jewish religion, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the matriarchs as well, in fact, but the patriarchs as the Merkava. They were the chariot. What does it mean they were the chariot? They were the ones that knew how to direct the chariot so that the chariot itself, the vehicle of these primal powers that we have within us, these powers, and of course you can explain these primal powers for yourself in ways that you see them in your own experience. I just give you the bare bones sort of translation of it, not so deep of an explanation. But the idea was that the patriarchs taught us, they were the first ones to teach us that harnessing these powers, these primal powers that we have, in the service of your higher self, your higher being, in other words, the Adam Ha'elyon Sha'alaki, say the human form which is above the throne and above all the other, I'll just switch that off. And above all the other forces, when they directed by that human likeness, that is already the rectification of a person. Then he will be able to pass through this gate and reach up to the heavens, so to speak. This is the gate to God. The saintly pass through it. Okay, clear? Any questions? If you don't mind typing your questions into the chat box.